For that and more, we're joined now by Fadil Aliriza. Thanks for talking to us this evening, Fadil. Give us a little bit more details about what happened today. And is it fair to say that this is similar in some senses to what happened last July, where there was a lot of criticism coming from outside of Tunisia, worried about undemocratic or, power-grabbing overtones, whereas within Tunisia, this is not necessarily disapproved of at all?
Yeah, well, this is basically 3 midnight decrees that were issued last night, 2 of them concerning the judges. One basically gave the president special powers to dismiss judges as he sees fit in the case of an emergency or an attack on public security. And the second one basically lists the 57 judges who are fired. So we have very few details other than that. The only details we really know about this are basically what the president gave in a televised address beforehand, where he said that this was really for judges he saw as being corrupt, judges he saw as blocking prosecution of terrorism cases. And as you said, of course, there's certainly a lot of focus from international community. But domestically, we've seen the largest critics have been political parties, some lawyers, some judges, but of course there are still some lawyers and judges who are also standing by Kais Saied, and we haven't seen sort of mass protests on the street on issues of the judiciary. We've seen more anger really over economic issues, and in fact, we do see that there's a general strike announced for just a couple of weeks from now on the 16th. So people not quite as focused on this, but it is raising alarm bells, particularly among some in the human rights community especially.
Okay, and just as you were talking about that right now, the economic issues, give us a sense of the mood right now, because we did see earlier this week that the biggest trade union in Tunisia, the UGTT, they're calling for a national strike, aren't they? And this is possibly going to upset a bailout from the IMF to the tune of $4 billion. This union, the union does not want wages to stagnate or to remain as they are, which would be a deal in accepting the terms of the IMF, right? So are we looking at a national strike happening in Tunisia? And where is this likely to go, right, in terms of the social unrest?
Right. Well, I mean, they're calling for a strike in the public sector specifically. We'll see just how large the strike actually is. But unlike some of or actually many of the political parties, the UGT is an organization that has been quite successful at mobilizing masses into the streets when they need to. So far, they've taken a bit of a standoffish approach to Kais Saied. They have refused his decision to include them in a national dialogue that they said is not really based on the terms they would like to see for a national dialogue. And so they've really resorted to this strike to sort of get their message across, saying that the president is listening to them in other means. Now, of course, this is particularly over the cutting or this planned cutting of public sector hiring, the freezing of wages, but also there's a particular step that the president took, saying that negotiations with the union have to go through him, which they're unhappy about, so they're protesting that at the same time. But it's not just the union and the public sector. Really, there is an economic crisis that Tunisia is continuing to go through. We've seen Tunisia unable to access international credit to buy wheat, which it desperately needs to feed people at a time when consumer prices are going up, from food to the lifting of fuel subsidies, again, as the government is trying to meet the conditions that the IMF and the EU have asked for a new IMF loan. So the union will be tapping into this much greater economic anger that there is, not just against the president, but just generally against authorities in general.
Okay, thank you for that, Fadil Aliriza, on today's news out of Tunisia about that crackdown on allegedly corrupt judges and also the backdrop of a lot of social and economic unrest in Tunisia. Thanks for that.